Hi everyone, in this video we are going to explore all the main features of this Dragon rig, and this video is also the first video of the series in which I made a walk cycle, I made a fly cycle, and using these fly cycle and walk cycle I made multiple other animations. If you want, you can look at my full Vesperion course on creaturestation.com. And now before we proceed any further, you have to reference your Vesperion rig and your light rig. By default, you have three different rigs available for you. You have this Vesperion rig, which is the high resolution rig, in which you have all different LODs in one rig. Then you have this LOD 100. This one is a much lighter rig than this Vesperion rig. And this is in using this LOD 100, you will get a very nice playback. So for example, here this is in this walk cycle I loaded LOD 100. So right now we are getting like 17 FPS, but if I close my Maya, the other Maya, then this is easily going to achieve like 24 FPS playback. Now like moving on, so that's the first feature. So like you get these three different rig variations: the rig LOD 100 and the the Vesperion high resolution rig and the proxy Vesperion rig. So the first thing here is like if you select the main controller, so right now any controller that you will select, you will see that you might see that the translate rotate is not showing up on the top, it's showing somewhere down here. To fix that, all you have to do is just click on show and go to assets and uncheck this show at top. If you do that, then your translate and rotate will show on the top. And you will also see that in your outliner there are some unnecessary things. I'm not sure, you might not see, you might see, but to hide all these extra things, you have to go to display, you have to click on advanced asset controls, contents, and in this one you have to click on under parent. So by doing that, now you have a clean outliner, and you have a much like now your translate rotate are showing on the top. So I just want to mention a few things. And now the other main thing that I want to mention is, now if you press 6, in my file I have the textures and everything loaded. For if you want to get a similar look, but if they are not loading, you have to set project. So you have to go to files, and before you proceed any further, you have to set project to this Vesperion Maya rig, and then you have to click on set. So this, you have to do this for you to be able to load your Dragon rigs, Dragon textures. You will not be able to load the Dragon textures for the main body, because the main body is using UDEM texture. So if I go to the modeling, if I go to the UV, and if I go to UV editor, so you will see here the Dragon is not like, usually models are only utilizing the one UDEM here, but this Dragon is utilizing 14 different UDEMs. So like you can see, like all the there are multiple UDEMs. So now to be able to load all these textures properly in all these different UDEMs, so you have to if you, right now I'm using this zoo tools. So in zoo tools you get this multiple nice interesting tools. The best thing I like about this zoo tools is that there is this light bulb tool. If I click on that, so there's a fixed viewport. So in fixed viewport, I can just click, if I expand my this tool set here by clicking on this, so there is a texture button here, like there's a kind of show UDEM textures. So if I click on that, so this Maya is going to generate all the textures automatically. And so if you don't have the zoo tools, then what you have to do here is you have to select the main, like the body geometry, and then you have to load this hypershade. And in hypershade, you have to click on this spaceship button, like this one. So if you click on that, you will see all the main textures of your selected object in the viewport. So right now it's geometry. So now we can see the shader of this Dragon here, and then you have these multiple PNGs. So if you don't have the zoo tool, so you have to go to this PNGs and you have to generate texture. So you see, like there's a normal PNG. So now if I want to generate texture, so it's already generated. If I want to generate here, I have to click on generate preview here, and then I'm going to select the body color. I'm going to click on generate preview. So so that's how you're going to load all the textures. And as you can see, like in my reference editor, I have my Vesperion rig and I also have my light setup. So like this is for the lights. So now if I go to show, if I go to viewport, if I turn on the lighting, so I hide all the lightings from this show. So we have all these lights so that we can have this nicer look on the viewport. If I also have this ground here, if I turn on the ground, so now you can see it looks much nicer, and it's much more interesting, I feel, to animate with this kind of viewport. It's much more eye-pleasing, and now I can just play blast this directly, and I think it's gonna look much nicer with this lighting setup. So yeah, now for the first feature I wanted to mention is that you have these 3 different LODs. You have this high resolution LOD 100. So, and you can see in LOD 100 you're getting a very nice playback. As I mentioned, like if I close the dragon file, and then this is going to reach to 24 FPS as well. And yeah, and moving forward, the second feature that I want to mention here is all different limbs and all different fingers and thumbs, even this one small thumb and even these fingers, all of them have tweaker controllers. So let me show you. If I select any of the wing here, and if I go down here, so there are visibility options. So in visibility, you will be able to turn on these tweaker options. So now these tweakers are gonna let you control these wings and even the limb. So you can do that in the leg as well. You can do in all different controllers, and you can just turn on these extra controllers, and then you will be able to use them for any bendy things. So, and these tweaker controllers are not just for IK or FK. They can be transferred on both. So now, as you can see, in the leg, I'm using these bendy controllers. I'm moving it down, or I can even move this joint from here. So I can move the leg like this. And now if I switch from IK to FK, if I select this leg, and if I switch this leg from IK to FK, so right now like this, you can see I'm switching from IK to FK. This leg rig is maintaining this bendy and these extra tweaker controllers that we did. So like, now like by using these controls, you can let this dragon do yoga if you want. Like, you can do, is there in the arms, is there in the legs, even the spine here. Like if I select any spine controller and if I go down, you will be able to turn on these extra controllers, which you can use to tweak the spine even in fine-tuned ways. And yeah, so that's the first feature. Like, you have these tweaker controllers which allow you to, control this rig in a very, fine-tuned way. Moving on, like we have this amazing wing setup in which we have IK to FK. So like, let me quickly show you here. So like I was looking at this wing setup, this one. So I turned on these tweakers here. I'm going to select this main controller again, and I will hide all these extra tweaker controllers. So I wanted to quickly talk about IKFK in the wing. So right now, by default, we have these controllers are set to, so if these are FK controllers. So these are, you can see like I can rotate this wing by using each of these controllers. And if I select all these together, I can get some nicer shapes as well. But we also have IK controllers for the wing. So if I select all 4 controllers, all 4 wing controllers, we can switch from IK to FK here. So we have IK and FK. So I just want to quickly talk about these IK controllers. But before moving on to IK, by default, you have this FK controller. So maybe I should quickly talk about FK controllers first. And I wanted to quickly mention few details about FK. And yeah, so the FK is the main thing I want to mention is FK is like just FK. I mean, they are hierarchy based rotational controllers. So I can, select them and I can, rotate them and control this rig. But many of you might wonder that some of these FK fingers, for example, this first one, the FK orientation here is set in a little bit different way. So now you can see like there's a little bit different kind of angle here on this FK orientation. That's because right now this finger is having a much natural pose. It's like falling down, and based on that natural pose, now I set this dragon's FK orientation to so that it was working with the orientation of the finger, that with this much nicer pose. But we have option if some of you might not like this. Some of you pro guys, I will say, like they might not like this orientation. For them, if you select the main controller of the wing, So in this main controller, you have this last option, which is called FK world axis. So if you set this to 1, so now you'll see that, the wings will change a little bit. So this option you have is on the both wings. So if I select both wings, I can switch from FK, this FK world axis from 0 to 1. So on 1, so now if you select any of these controllers, so now you can see now they no longer have that weird orientation. Now all the orientations are straight. So I was feeling like, some of you pro guys might not like this default wing. So for them, I have this extra, switch in which you can quickly set the FK from, a little bit, these natural pose to more straighter kind of pose. And moving on, so now we have, IK controllers. So now I think I can move on to IK, but moving on from, before we move on to IK, I'm going to select this wing start controller. So now you can see this wing start is controlling the entire wing. So if we need to control and rotate this entire wing, for that, we have this wing start controller, this button. So but like, in this wing start controller, like you have a couple more attributes. The first one is the FK world axis, which we just talked about. And the second one is we have this IK fingers supercontroller. So this IK finger supercontroller works amazingly with IK. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we explore this IK finger supercontroller, by default, this IK supercontroller is hidden because you have to be a little bit careful before before you start using this supercontroller. You have to be mindful to use this supercontroller. So that's why by default this one, the supercontroller is hidden. So this is the supercontroller. I'm going to talk about that supercontroller after I talk about the wings, IK wings. So I'm going to select all these all 4 fingers and I will switch them to IK. So these are IK fingers. So now IK fingers you can control, just by selecting this last wing, and you can start moving this wing like this. So now you can see the IK finger is behaving in a in a IK way. So I think maybe I should select this first one, and that would be much easier to see. So if I select the first one, and you can see I can move this IK finger, and then if I rotate this controller, then you can see I'm rotating this pole vector with it as well. I can give much nicer poses with this. But some of you might say it'll be much harder to control the wing with IK. I agree with you. So that's why I also gave you guys these extra pivot controllers for this for these fingers. So right above this finger you have this arrow controller. So this arrow controller means that this is just for the pivot as a IK. So now instead of selecting this N controller and trying to position this IK, you can also select this this pivot controller, and you can literally rotate the IK controller from this pivot. And by rotating it like this, let me hide the ground, you are giving yourself a much nicer way to control this wing. So now you can move this wing around from that pivot, you can rotate this wing from that pivot, and it's like a FK, but now it's giving you much nicer kind of control. Now you can you can control this finger from this IK pivot, as well as you can also select this one and you can move this finger closer and further away. You have this extra control here. This one is for the so that you can design the shape of this finger. So maybe sometimes the finger would be like this, and sometimes the finger would be somehow like this. And you can also rotate this finger sideways. You can so this is a little bit more using IK would be a little bit much advanced way to control this finger. And that's what I did. So I used IK fingers for my tutorial. So if the animations that you saw in the beginning, all those animations were done using this IK finger controllers. And I explained in my tutorials how we can utilize these IK fingers in a much deeper level. Yeah, and then you have on the start and right, and on the root you have some of these extra wing start and the controllers. Now let me move on to this IK supercontroller. So if I turn on the supercontroller, so now I will show you guys that how you can utilize this supercontroller to control the IK fingers in a much more nicer way. So now if I select the supercontroller, if I turn on the rotations, so why I mentioned I kept this supercontroller hidden, because you have to use the supercontroller on gimbal mode. So if you try to control this supercontroller from the object, there are chances that you might end up rotating in a wrong way. So this super controller is set in a way that each axis is giving you a specific kind of rotation in the entire wing. So now if I select this super controller and if I try to rotate in Z, so now you can see like rotating the super controller in Z is giving us a nice curl on all of the fingers. So now instead of making this finger one by this kind of pose one by one, now we can literally just use this finger control, this super controller, and we can get a nice shape, and we can let this flap go up and down by using this super controller. In the animations, again, the animations that you saw in the beginning, I used the super controller to get the main motion of the wing. I'm just talking about the wing. And now if I rotate this wing in Y, so now you can see just by rotating in Y, you are getting much, you can control this wing, you can expand and bring this wing in just by rotating in Y. You also have these extra spread in, spread out, attributes down here. You can also use them. They are specifically just to, spread in, spread out the fingers, but you can use this Y rotation as well. And then in rotation you have this X rotation, which rotates the entire finger from the pivot of the IK controller. So now you can see like you are rotating the entire finger. So this would be useful when the wing is going up and down. For example, when the wing is going to go down up, it might have a curl like this, and when it's coming down, it might go somehow like this. So you can tweak the wing nicely using the super controller. So let me zero it out. So not just rotations, you can move this super controller up and down. So now you can see by moving it up and down, you are controlling the entire wing membrane. So now you can see the membranes are falling down and going up just from here. And not just that, if you move the super controller sideways, so now you can see by moving it sideways, again, you have to, if you want to do this thing to your wing, you have to be in the gimbal mode in rotation, and in the translation you have to be, if you hold W and if you hold left mouse button and if you go to axis, you have to be in this live object axis to be able to use it properly. You can do it from this by clicking on this hammer with 3 lines, and you have this live along live objects. That's what you have to set here to get this properly. So now you can see now as we move it sideways, the wing is just swinging sideways. So now we can add we can use this controller to add some swings on the wings, and we can use this up and down to move the wings up and down. Last but not least, we have this X translate as well. This just moves the entire wing closer and further away. So you can see if I move this X control X axis, you can see I'm moving the finger controllers closer and further away from us. I'm just going to zero this out. So that's just a quick intro of the wing. Now I think I want to move on to some other controllers that we have. So like on the outliner here, you have multiple layers. So these layers are there for us to hide and unhide some extra controllers that you get here. I'm going to start with these membrane controllers. So you have these membrane controllers here. So if you turn them on, so now these membrane controllers are there for you to fine tune the wing like this. So you can literally you don't have to use them, but sometimes if you see some intersection or something, you can use these membrane controllers to get some nicer shapes here. So let me quickly explain the membrane. So membrane controllers are divided into 2 parts. So you have rotational controller, so you can control the entire wing by rotation like this. So for example, if I select this rotation controller, so now I can rotate the wing from this connection here, from this where the wing is connected to this to the bone here. And you have the second controller here, which is this movable controller. So you can also select this controller and you can move this up and down. So yeah, you have these movable controllers which are in the middle, and you have these rotational controller which are in the which are on the bone, right very close to the bone. But there's a trick here. So if I right click on the mirror controllers and if I click on select objects, so now this is just going to select these rotational objects, these rotational controllers. It's not going to select these last one. So if I hide these membrane controllers, it's hiding these ones also because they are in a hierarchy. But if I right click and if I click on select objects, I'm only selecting these membrane controllers, the starting ones. So now I can control the entire membranes from starting to end. Like, we can control all the membranes together just by doing that. Now you see, like if you want to control them separately, so now you see, just by right clicking membrane controller and by selecting that, now all you have to do is rotate in Z. And now you can see like you are rotating the entire wing, like all the wings, you are giving that up and down motion on the membranes. So this is a great feature. I think, if you want to control the membranes, you can control all of them from here, and you can turn them on and off from here. Moving on, we have these wind controllers. So these wind controllers, I set their values by default in a nice way. So so you can see like each of these light electric shock kind of controllers. So these are the wind controllers. So if you select them, so these the controllers that are very close to these pivot controllers, these are for the bones, and the controllers which are right here at the start, these are for the membranes. So like, for example, let's say if I want to add some wind in the membrane, so I can animate this taper, and like so, and I can also, if I want to add some more wind in this part, I can add some more taper like here. So like I don't have to specifically do one by one. What I can do here is the easiest way would be, let me quickly go back again a little bit. I'm going to press Ctrl Z. So I'm just going to right click on the wind controllers, and I will click on select objects. So again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm selecting all my wind controllers. So now I can increase the taper value in the entire thing. So now I'm not just increasing in the wings, I'm also adding some wind in the tail right now. So now if I put this to 0.5, so now you can see like by putting it to 0.5, right now it's not playing super smooth because this is a high resolution rig. But I can show you guys this in this walk cycle in which I'm using a light rig. So right now you can see this dragon is walking here. I can add some wind here. It's not going to look the best because it's walking. So if I just right click on this wind controllers and I select objects, now I'm selecting all of them. You can unhide them as well. And now if I add some taper value here, maybe I will add 0.5, maybe 0.4. And if I press play, so now you can see like there is a wind. So even in the back, in the tail, you can see now the tail is having some wind. Again, this is supposed to be working with the with a flight. Now you will not see much detail right now in the wings because their wings are already moving here with the gravity. But if I increase it now, and you will see that there is some wind going on in the membranes. So you can add and remove wind from these taper ones. And if you want to go even more further, if you want to fine tune the wind properties, you can do it from these vertical amplitude and all. You have all these noise. You can add amplitude, you can add frequency. You can try to adding all these extra things in two different directions, up and down and sideways. And you can just taper them off to 0 if you don't want anything. So this wind options is, I think it's a pretty good option, because like when a dragon is flying, worrying about the wind is a specific thing that bother everyone. So now you have this taper, you can just turn it on, and now you will have the wind on the main part, like on the tail and the wings fingers, and they will have the flutteriness. And now I'm gonna move on to the most important part, like the most interesting part, I will say, like, because I spend the most amount of time on this specific thing that I'm gonna talk about, which is the muscle controllers. So now if I turn on this jiggle controllers and then muscle controllers. So muscle controllers are hidden under the jiggle controller. So if you want to turn on the muscle controllers, you have to first turn on the jiggle controllers. So these jiggle controllers are just these traditional jiggle controllers. So if you try to move this jiggle controller, so you can see these are just traditional jiggle controller which are moving just with the effect of skinning. But you can turn on the muscle controller. So muscle controllers are hidden inside the jiggle controller. So if I select this, and I can, now you can see like I can move the muscles inside the skin by moving these jiggle controllers like this. Same thing here, I can select this and I can move the entire muscle inside the neck of this. And you don't just have it on the neck, you have it on the body, you have it on the legs, you have it on the start of the tail. And like on the most jiggly parts, like in the start of the wing, in the arm, you can add some nice kind of muscle kind of behavior. For example, if I select this one, I will be able to add some kind of, skin moving effect. It's not same as jiggle. So like, for example, this one, the outer one is a jiggle controller. If I move it, so now it's just behaving as a traditional jiggle controller. But inside one is like, it's not behaving the same way. It's like, there's a muscle which is trying to move. Same thing here. If I select this one, it's moving like, there's a muscle here which is moving. So now you can imagine like, we can tweak this one in a way so like, so that we can make the flight even look much nicer with this. Now if I select this lower one, it's the same thing. So now you can see if I'm moving this, I have to like, you can see now the entire like, the kind of muscle is behaving till here. And the same thing goes to down here. So now you can select the down here and you can let the dragon breathe in specific way, and you can like, move them in a way. So like, there are multiple ways to move this. And like here, like these ones, and not just that, like even the under the neck here. So now you have these nice ones, like, I can add a really cool kind of, skin sliding effect on the neck here. If I show you from the side. So these muscle ones are, helping you to, to get a nicer, like, kind of skin simulation and the muscle simulation on this dragon once your animation is done. And even if your animation is not done, like if you want to add something on the roar, like, that roar is not just opening mouth. Roar is coming from the entire body, is coming from the lungs. It's coming from the tummy, actually. When you're roaring, your tummy react a lot, so now you will be able to get all those nicer feels by moving these jiggle controllers. Another main thing I'm going to talk about here is the pivots. So let me talk about the pivot. So I thought about it. I was the main thing that when I was making this dragon rig, I was thinking, the IK is great. For example, like, I can switch. We have this, I will select this arm controller. So right now, the arm that we are having here, this is a FK arm. So, but if I select any FK controllers, and if I go to this IK FK, and I'm gonna switch this from IK to FK. So now you will get these pivot controllers. So these pivot controllers are there to, to control the wing in a very specific way. So now you can see, like, now I can select this pivot controller and I can literally control the arm like an FK. And not just that, we have this pivot controllers on the fingers as well, which I was talking about earlier. So now, like, you don't only have these pivot controllers on these fingers, you also have these on arm. So in arm, you have these, not just one pivot controller, you have 3 different pivot controllers. So now this is the, like, for example, let's say you wanted to add some extra, motion on the arm. You can, control these pivot controllers like this, and you can add some extra, motion by using these pivot controllers. And like, how is it working? It's working like, so now if I select this IK controller, and if I scroll down, so you will see that IK space switch. So in the IK space switch, now the IK controller is following the pivot controller. So you can see, like, IK controller is following the pivot. Same way, this IK controller, the finger IK controller right now is also following the pivot. So if you scroll down, so IK space right now is set to pivot. So now we can see, like, we can change that. So now if you set this to maybe parent, so now you will not, this finger controller will not be following this, like pivot controller. And the same thing here. So right now this arm is following this pivot controller. But let's say if this dragon is walking, then you don't need to, this is more like a flight thing, then you can easily just switch this arm from this, if you go to the space here, which is right here. So from pivot to maybe world. So now you can, this arm is now world, and now you can let this dragon walk on the ground. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly also mention about this this pivot controllers. So I mentioned that. So if you see these pivots around here, so these are just there to help you with this IK, IK controllers here. So, instead of controlling this IK controllers manually like this and, getting some, in the flight, I thought it'd be much easier to control this wing from this pivot controllers as well. So you have it, you can use it if you want, or if you don't like it, you can just hide them by Ctrl H. You don't need to use it. In my flight animation, which you saw in the beginning, I did not use these pivot controllers. I did not use these ARM pivot controllers. I did not use them, but I did use these controllers, the pivot controllers of the fingers. So now let me change the pivot of my this so IK space. If I set it to pivot, so now this IK finger is going to follow this pivot controller. So yeah, I quickly wanted to mention, because some of you might have this questions, what is the use of these pivot controllers? I'm gonna just quickly switch from IK to FK again. So if I select the main controller, so I have this body LOD. So now, if you load the Vesperion high resolution rig, by default, it should have the LOD 200. So you can set this to LOD 100. You will get a little bit better playback in LOD 100. If you're animating this dragon, then, the best way would be to start animating with LOD 100, because it's much nicer and it's much more smoother to work with LOD 100. So now that, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have LOD 100, you have Proxy Vesperion rig, and you have this high resolution Vesperion rig. And the next thing I also want to mention, that you have this LOD 100, and you also have this Proxy Vesperion rig. So the reason I put this Proxy rig is, like, for example, if some of you have a very old computer and this dragon is not playing smoothly, then you can use Proxy rig. And not just that, you can use this proxy to set up a ragdoll setup, simulation here. So you can literally make your own ragdoll by using all these small proxy things, and you can literally set, for example, for each membrane here, or for each finger here in this proxy, I can literally, make my own ragdoll for each of these, kind of fingers, and so. Yeah, so if you know how to create ragdoll setup, then you will be able to use this proxy broken apart kind of rig to make your own ragdoll setup for this dragon. By default, you will get two ragdoll setups with this, one for the the skin simulation, and one for the one for the tail and the legs. So some of you might want to add some secondary animation in the tail and the leg. For that, you will get by default, you will get a yeah. So I think I might have moved this, that's why it's a little bit broken apart like this. So yeah, but I'm gonna switch back to LOD 100. Okay, so now this is by default. So now okay, so now the reason it was broken like this, the proxy, because we have those wind controllers still active. So if I right click on the wind controller, if I click on select objects, so now I'm selecting all the wind, I'm going to put the taper to 0. So now I remove the wind. So now you can see, like, our the proxy rig is also looking better now. So because there was a wind active on this. Okay, so we have multiple space switches on entire body. Now if you select any controller, and even in this any of these chest, so like you have amazing amount of space switches. Like you can set, for example, right now I'm selecting this chest, I can select this controller to parent all, to world orient, and upon that there is a, for example, even this neck right now. So right now if I move this neck controller, you can see it's moving up and down. But I can control it separately for the back neck, and I can control it separately. So this controller is for the front neck, and this controller. So I set up in a way, like if I talk about in this one, it's much lighter rig. So right now you can see, this controller is controlling the back part of the neck, and this controller is controlling the front part of the neck. So this is giving us a much nicer way to control this dragon, because now, if you want to add some nice shake in the front part of the neck, we can use this. If you want to add some, nice, motion in the back part of the neck, because it's a huge neck, it's a heavy neck, we can utilize this, the main neck controller to move the back part of the neck. And now we can change the switch, it doesn't have to work like this. So, you can change the space switch of this main controller from down here. So right now the main controller, the controller 2 is set to parent all. And there, you also have this flight control orient option. So you can, if you want to go deeper into this space switches and all, then it's better to, get my tutorials then, because I explained how to use this space switches properly. For now, I think as you will start using, you will understand how to utilize the space switches. So you have this flight controller, which will be which we are going to utilize in the flight mode. So when this dragon is going to fly, we are going to use this flight controller, which the pivot of this flight controller is set right in the middle of the chest. So we will be able to use this flight controller to, do all kind of aerodynamics and, to move this dragon on a curve, or maybe like, manually. Okay, and yeah, so as I was mentioning, like, you have multiple space switches for this dragon, and not just that, you have these, if I go to this neck here, so if I select a couple of these controllers, so you have these kind of controls for the neck, in which you can add a specific kind of a rotational, like, kind of jiggle on this on the neck, on the, like, you can, there is another controller above this which you can utilize to add a even smaller kind of feel here. And there is a, so you have multiple layers of sorry, that one was for the other part of the neck. And you have this neck root here, which is controlling the entire neck up and down. And then you have these FK controllers on the neck, which are controlling like a FK. If you want to control the entire neck in IK, you can do that as well. So this entire neck can be controlled with IK. You can turn the stretchiness on and off if you want. So you also have this tweak controller, which you have to turn on if you want to, tweak this neck in a specific way. You will be able to do that. And the spine is also the exact same. So, like, I also gave this extra orientation of the neck. So if you want to do some extra kind of, jiggliness on the neck, you can do it with this. And plus, you also have these membrane control, jiggle controllers you can turn on. In the jiggle controllers, you have these specific, FK controllers for the neck, in which you can, add some jiggliness on this part of the neck. You can add some jiggliness on this part of the neck. You have 3 sets of neck jiggle controllers here. We can utilize them to add some nice jiggle here, and there are some in the front as well. Moving on to the back, spine. So now I'm going to hide this jiggle controller. It's the same story with the spine. You have this IK controller, so you can use this IK to move the spine up and down, to add all kind of rotations. You also have this reverse FK controller. So sometimes when this dragon is going to fly, I think this reverse FK controller is going to work really nicely, which means we will be able to animate this dragon instead of animating this back body of this dragon moving like this, instead of moving the when the dragon is going to fly, you can also utilize this reverse FK controller, and you can literally use this one to add some, like, you can have all kind of nice motion in your flight cycles on this IK controller. Plus, upon that, if you want to add some extra follow through on the back body, to add some follow through on the on the back body using this reverse FK. And like you have this back body controller here, which is used for just to control the back body. You have moving on, let me quickly talk about the foot controllers. Maybe I can talk about the foot controllers in our main rig. So you have IKFK switches on the fingers as well, which I explained earlier. But you can utilize these if you set all your fingers to IK. Let me do that right now. And now you can utilize these controllers to get a nicer feel on the foot. When the foot is rolling like this, you can just use this front roll to roll the foot like this. And upon that, you can select specific controllers of the foot, and you can move them back to get them on a nicer kind of pose as the foot is rolling. There are many other nicer features on this foot. Like, it's going to take me like maybe full day if I continue talking about all the small extra features that you have on the foot. I would say, like, maybe I will keep the rest of the details for the people who want to get this rig and get my courses. I went into much more detail into how to utilize these controllers in our in my tutorials. But yeah, like for now, okay, so you also have this FK tail here, and I also provided you guys with a ragdoll setup for the tail and the legs. I talk about the main things in the body, and I can continue talking about that in the front body as well. You have the same way, of like you have multiple facial expressions here. You can do some nicer, you can get some nicer like kind of wrinkles on the face. If you want this dragon to talk, then you have these extra ones. These can go up and down, and like you can control the mouth from two different pivots. So you can control the lower jaw from here, and you can also control the upper jaw using this one. So now you can see you can rotate this up and down. You have a decent, a very nice tongue setup here. Like you have the FK for the tongue, and then you can also control the sides of the tongues separately using these controllers. So I can rotate the side of my tongue using these ones. Okay. You can turn on the neck scales. So like if you want to control the neck scales separately, so you will be able to do that using these neck scale controllers. Now you can add all kind of nicer creature kind of feel, like the eye is opening and then eye looking around. So like you have very nice controls for the eye here. So like so you can see the entire eye is behaving and reacting to this. The eye setup is also nice. You can turn on many extra controllers on the eye, and you can animate the eye in a much deeper way. You can you can go crazy. That's what I'm trying to say here. And I spend almost I spend a lot of time making this rig and making the dragon courses. So I'm 100% sure that you will gain, like if you will gain a lot of things from this rig, and you will gain a lot of things from my courses as well. So please go ahead and check this rig out on my website creaturestation.com, and also consider getting my courses in which I made multiple animations using this dragon rig. And yeah, I hope to see some animations that you will make with this dragon rig, and thank you so much.